beautiful sounds of Africa there to once again kick off our World Football phone-in. 08085 909 693 is the number to call if you'd like to join us this morning. 08085 909 693. So we're talking football in Africa and in South America this morning. Over in Cape Town, our one and only oracle of African football is the great Springboca Junior. We call him Mark Gleeson. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Wonderful fanfare. I was expecting a bit of a drum roll. That was brilliant.
Yeah, we've got the drums. Go on, can we hear them? Can we hear the drums? I know it feels like Michael Caine in Zulu Dawn, you know, when all the Zulus appear on the horizon. We had a school fight like that, actually. I'll tell you about that another time. And over in Rio, taking care of South American football, is the one and only Legendinho. We know him as Tim Vickery. Good morning, Tim.
Yeah, good morning. All about that drum roll you did, it sounded like lots of footsteps, everyone trying to run away. Don't run away, come back. Gleeson won't bite you. He's very nice, really.
Well, we gave Gleeson an African drum roll. We ought to give you something from South America.
Go ahead, give it away.
Olha que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça. Ela, menina que vem, que passa de jeito gostoso. Nananã.
Live and direct in the BBC studios, we have Gabriel, Felipe, Lucas, and together you are what band?
Up and Go.
Up and Go, Tim.
Yeah.
Do you know them?
I don't. So I'm delighted to make their acquaintance.
You don't know them, but they know you, don't you guys? Yeah. How famous is Tim? How do you say Tim Vickery in Portuguese?
Tim Vickery.
Tim Vickery.
Yeah, it's the same sound.
Yeah, but it's not,
I know that he is a Fluminense fan.
He's Fluminense.
No, it's not true. Not true. Her indoors is a Fluminense fan.
His wife is a Fluminense. That's good.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. You almost got it right. And because you say you pronounce it Tim Vickery, but we know that you don't pronounce it Jonathan Woodgate.
No, that's not true. It's not true. All the time I get referred Chin Vickery.
Yeah, it's true.
I've owned up to it.
Chin Vickery.
It sounded very Portuguese, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have got this fascinating group from Brazil that we bumped into literally in the last 10, 15 minutes. And they've come all the way here just so that they can tell us what Tim Vickery gets up to in Brazil.
Well, I want to know what they get up. What they get up to. What type of stuff they play.
We play pop, soul, funk music, but we added like Brazilian percussion to our songs. So, yeah, it's a different kind of song.
And
you're talking my language. That's right up my street. So I'm going to be checking you out afterwards.
And you literally came to Europe not having any gigs.
Nope.
Yeah, nope.
And with nobody knowing about you.
Yeah.
And how many people in the band altogether?
The band has five members, but we came with a staff of 10 people.
10 people.
In total. Yeah.
And you just hired 2 caravans to live in?
Yeah, five people in each.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
You just finished a tour of the UK, but you're going to be touring
around
the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
And you're going to Portugal as well.
Yeah, we're going to Portugal, I think, tomorrow.
Next stop. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, before we go on to talk World Football phoning things, which country plays the best football, Brazil or Argentina?
Should I?
Yeah, okay.
Should I answer this?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Brazil, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you mean Brazil, obviously?
Yeah, because we play better than them. Of course.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Okay,
but
who's the greatest footballer ever, Maradona or Pelé?
Pelé.
Yeah, Pelé.
I don't even think.
We don't even have to think about that. Yeah.
It's going to be a long night, folks. So we have got Lucas.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not.
It's going to be a long night. We've got Lucas, Gabriel, and Felipe from the band Up and Go with us. If you've got any questions for them, do feel free on 08085 909 693. And let's not forget, there's a big match happening This week, England versus Croatia, and we've got our very own Dominic Busby to tell us more about that and to answer any questions you have.
I noticed how you deliberately avoided mentioning Carlton Palmer when you were talking about the greatest players of all time. So I just thought I'd put him in there.
He was a good player. Come on, he was a decent player.
Absolutely, Sheffield Wednesday, brilliant.
Played for his country as well.
Certainly did.
Carlton!
Do I not like that?
Guys, let's be serious. First question goes to the Springboca Junior from Richard in Oxford, who says, "Morning, guys. I hope you're well. My question is to do with South Africa. Do they have enough firepower to trouble Nigeria this Sunday, Springboca Junior?"
And it's in a few hours' time. This Saturday, 3 p.m. local time, 1 p.m. UK time. We're going to find out, I suppose. I'm not so sure we do. It's a massive game for South Africa, massive game for Nigeria too. It's one of the growing rivalries on the continent. Not so much football-wise, but I suppose it's bragging rights for two big economic superpowers who like to butt heads every now and then. South Africa beat Nigeria away from home at the start of this Nations Cup qualifying group, and yet somehow have managed to continue unbeaten, but still really sabotage their own chances. They drew with the tiny Seychelles. They drew at home with Libya. They've allowed Nigeria to take over command of the group, and if Nigeria draw, they will qualify for the Nations Cup. If South Africa win, they will qualify for the Nations Cup. But that is the big question amongst all the local fans: is there enough firepower up front? We've got this player called Lebogang Motiba, who's emerged in the last year or so. He plays for Strasbourg in the French First Division. He's been amongst the goals, 6 or 7 so far in the league, but he was absolutely hopeless playing against the mighty Seychelles in the last qualifier. Couldn't find the back of the net. It was just wave after wave of attacks, ended goalless. So I think the locals are a little bit worried, and it's reflected in the fact that they moved this match, the Federation, to Soccer City, which is the big stadium in Johannesburg where they had the 2010 World Cup final, primarily for the altitude, try and wear down the Nigerians, but secondly, hoping that a massive crowd would cheer South Africa to victory. They've sold some 10,000 of the 90,000 tickets, which just shows you how dimly the locals view the form of the national team over the last, I would say, 10, 12 years. It's been really poor.
They're not even going to come out to applaud the Nigerian football shirts, the best football shirts ever in a World Cup. And you're trying to wear Nigerians down. Are you having a laugh?
We are, unfortunately. We are. I mean, as much as you guys having a laugh with those awful shirts, we are with our alleged patriotism. It's really a poor reflection on South African football fans. We'll see what happens today. I'm getting on a plane at the end of the show, going off, adding my one to the 10,000. But I think with walk-ins, they'll probably get about 15, 20,000, which is a really poor show for a home international against Nigeria.
Tim, you heard that withering dismissal of the Nigerian football shirts. Typical Gleeson, isn't it? What have we done to deserve that? We give the world a great football shirt and he dismisses it with just one well-aimed swipe at it.
Top corner.
It was, actually.
Going away from the keeper all the time.
Exactly. We've got Ryan in North London with us. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Don.
Yeah, good to have you call. You've got a question for the Legendinho.
Yeah, for Tim, yeah. I'd like to know, basically, how Venezuela are regarded out in South America. You know, obviously they were in the World Cup Under-17 final against England, and they've got Solomon Rondon, who's scoring goals in the Premier League up front. I wonder whether they've got a genuine chance to qualify for the World Cup in Qatar for the first time.
I think we've lost the Legendino, you know? Yeah, we've lost him.
No ways.
Question.
Yeah, you know what? No, Ryan, stay there. We'll come back. We'll come back to this in a moment. Once we manage to get Tim's dog off the phone line, because, he likes to chew through those phone wires. Okay, just bear with us. Hopefully we'll get the Legendinho back in a moment, which is an opportune time to actually, Don Busby,
Yes.
to talk about England-Croatia. Before we talk about that, and Gleeson, you may want to come in on this as well, Mark. This week saw a football referee being reprimanded for having forgotten to take the coin out to the middle of the pitch for the toss before kickoff, being reprimanded for that, resorting, I thought, to the default position for anybody who's exactly default position for anybody who's played schoolboy football, which is paper, scissors, stone, or rock, as you lot call it. But I beg to differ with the authorities who are reprimanding him on this. Is paper, scissors, rock the natural way to decide who kicks off, or is it the flip of a coin? For you?
For me, I would say that is absolutely the best way to go. And what great innovation! Look, he should have had a coin in his pocket, but to be fair, referees running around with coins jangling in their pocket. It might be his lunch money. He might have been wary. He might have been wary of losing it. And what great innovation! I think the man should be absolutely applauded. I just want to know: did he do the best of three, or did he just do one? Because that's also vital.
No, well, you got to do best of three. You got to do best of three. You got to entertain the crowds for sure. Dom, what about you?
Well, I think it's great fun, and I see that other referees have come out in sympathy by carrying out the same process to try and give him some backing. I believe that part of the reason why he didn't sprint off to get a coin was because they were trying to get it over with in time for the television. So he thought he was doing the right thing and speeding things along and ended up in hot water for it, which is a great shame. But yeah, as you say, it could be added pre-match entertainment, couldn't it? Best of three, best of five.
Well,
why not?
In that case, we may as well play it, you and I. We've got enough time. Okay?
Yeah.
No, best of three, yeah? Best of three.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Now, I want to see your hands.
Well, can you see it? Can you see it?
I can see your hands. You put your hands up where I can see them, mate. Yeah. As the cops always say. Put your hands up where I can see them. Okay.
The two of you do realise you're on radio.
I'm just going to claim I've won then.
Well, you can do the
see
commentary.
him. We can see each other.
We'll do the commentary. Okay. We're doing the commentary now. Okay.
I can't see your hand,
so
but
who's going to call? Tim, do you mind doing the rock, the choo chin cha? We say choo chin cha. Do you mind doing that? And then on the cha, you throw your.
I don't really know this game. Get a Brazilian in to do it for you.
Okay.
I can't remember the rules.
We got some Brazilians here. Gabriel and Felipe, Lucas, which one of you wants to do choo chin cha? On cha, we throw the rock, paper, scissors. Okay.
Yes.
So which one of you?
I'll do it.
Oh, Lucas, go ahead. Okay, so you just chant in choo chin cha.
Okay.
Don't cheat, Dom. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Okay, go on. Choo chin cha.
Chun chin cha.
Hang on, Dom. No, that's too late. Come on, no.
Well, come on. I did it on.
What did they do in Brazilian? What did they do in Brazil in that in counting down? Surely they did a different thing than the one you just.
That's a good point. In Brazil, what do you say? Choo chin cha.
Pedra, papel, tesoura.
It's a scissor, rock, or paper.
Right, tesoura.
That's what you call it. But what do you do when you count it down?
Do you know when you count it? When it has 1, 2, 3. What do you say?
We say the name, the words.
Pedra, papel, tesoura.
Rock,
tesoura.
Yeah,
Caesar.
Yeah, but by then you can change your mind because it's too long.
Yeah.
Tesoura.
Yeah.
Tesoura.
Zora.
But you can go, sorry. Whereas with ours, cha.
Well, that's all we've time for on this week's football.
Okay, let me try it once more. Look, this isn't working, Dom. The referee's calling a foul on this one. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move.
Ryan in North London, you've been waiting patiently to ask Tim a question. Now that Didier Drogba has been pulled off his phone line, I think you can ask him. Go ahead.
Hi, Tim.
Tim, you never heard that, did you? Have we lost him again? We've lost
No
him.
ways.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah, but
Go on.
can
Fire the question away.
Hi, Tim. It's about Venezuela, whether they're regarded in South America like if they could genuinely challenge for a World Cup place, like after them finishing in the final of the Under-17 World Cup and Rondon scoring goals in the Premier League, whether they've actually got a chance.
Yeah, on Venezuela, historically, it's a place where football found it harder to penetrate, and it's very much in the baseball belt culturally. And even Hugo Chavez, I think he joined the army in order to play baseball. And football was restricted to kind of immigrant communities. And Venezuela was much more famous internationally for baseball and beauty contests. But they've really turned the corner. In the last 20 years, the progress that they've made has been extraordinary. And despite the huge economic problems that the country is going through. It wasn't the Under-17 World Cup, it was the Under-20 World Cup last year that they reached the final, lost to England in the final. And they're really, really optimistic that generation will be the generation that takes them to the World Cup for the first time. They weren't far off in the last couple of campaigns, especially 2 campaigns ago when they beat Argentina in qualification. You remember Argentina actually ended up reaching the final in that World Cup, the one in Brazil, 2014. They weren't far off there. And then the goals from Rondon just dried up a little bit. The last qualification campaign, they went too ambitious. They had a coach who was trying to get them to play too attacking. They didn't have the defensive pace for it, and they got picked off, and that they had a disaster. This time around, they're very confident. They've just got a pretty good result a few hours ago. They went to Japan, and they got a 1-1 draw. Rondon led the line. He came off. Martinez came on, who's a very, very quick player, really quick. And he started causing the Japanese some problems. He helped.
Sorry if I'm interrupting, but that is a sign of the changing times in the world football order when you say that a South American team got a really good result. They drew 1-1 in Japan.
Well, for Venezuela, that is a terrific result. You know, Uruguay lost there a month ago. Uruguay lost in Japan. And Japan have been at every World Cup since 1990, and they're a consolidated force. 1998, I think. Yeah, Japan have been everyone since 1998. So they're a consolidated force now. Venezuela are beginning to consolidate themselves, and they will go into this next set of World Cup qualifiers promoting a number of those players who came through the under-20 ranks. They've got an experienced spine. Rondon, Thomas Rincon, the captain, the central midfielder who scored the penalty, is another member of that. And especially when the World Cup increases, from 32 to 48, then basically all of South America qualifies. There'll only be like, of the 10, there'll be maybe 3 that don't qualify. So then Venezuela will definitely get in. But I think they're a reasonable bet to get in 2022. The progress they've made is quite remarkable, and they're not an easy game for anyone anymore. They've beaten everyone. They haven't beaten Brazil competitively, but they've beaten Brazil in friendlies. Everyone else they've beaten over the last decade competitively. And they beat Uruguay in Montevideo 3-0 before Brazil had beaten them in a competitive game in that stadium. That's a magnificent result to do that. And if they get to a World Cup, whether they're really capable of making big progress, at the moment I think not. I think they're just without that little bit of quality. If they were to get to a World Cup, I think it would be a little bit similar perhaps to Peru this time in Russia. But long term, despite all of the economic problems, they're moving in the right direction.
Is that good enough for you, Ryan?
Excellent, very thorough, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the call. Call any time.
Thank you for keeping me at work. I'm a cab driver. I always listen, keeps me out, and it's easier to go home. So
yeah, you're going to get some singing tonight as well, mate. So keep the volume down. Don't disturb the neighbours. Appreciate that, Brian.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Cleo in Aldershot is with us. Good morning, Cleo.
Morning, Dotun. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Tim.
Well, morning, Cleo.
Morning.
What about Dom? Are we leaving him out?
And good morning, Dom.
Good morning.
Dom.
And what about our Brazilians?
I don't speak any Portuguese, so sorry.
Okay, the one word you need to know.
I was yesterday in the greatest stadium in North London. Completed stadium, sorry.
Use it now, Cleo. You're not going to be able to use that line for long.
You say that, Tim.
Yeah, I've been there. She will be able to use it for some time.
It's another 3 or 4 years.
Uruguay 1-0 in the Samba Tour, and they're coming to Milton Keynes on Tuesday because they're playing Cameroon, the champions of Africa.
Brazil versus Cameroon. Whoa.
Yeah. Milton Keynes. Never come down, but they hold 30,000. What does Tim and Mark think the teams are going to be like, the lineup? Because they had a very good lineup against Uruguay last night. I watched it on ITV4.
Do you want to take that first, Mark?
Yeah, Cameroon are in no measure a great representative of the continent at the moment, despite the fact they are the reigning Nations Cup champions. They're a little lucky.
Morocco, didn't they, the day before yesterday?
They did, and they haven't won for a while. In fact, since Clarence Seedorf took over, they're still looking for a first win. Really were thoroughly outplayed last night by Morocco. You know, when they won the Nations Cup in Gabon in 2017, I thought there was a fair dollar proportion about that. But you know how things can go in a tournament. You get things going, a little bit of luck here and there, and all of a sudden you find yourself on the podium with a trophy. That was certainly the case with Cameroon in 2017. They really haven't built on that. You would have thought that it was a fairly young side. There would have been a fair bit of momentum, but that coach has gone now unpaid for 6 months allegedly. The federation is in a mess. They still have they're still sort of under quasi FIFA control because they haven't been able to put a constitution together to the liking of FIFA. They've won one qualifier. My apologies, under Seedorf, which was against Malawi at home. Very, very narrow 1-0 win against a fairly small side. But they've drawn away in the tiny Comores. They drew away in Malawi. They were beaten by Morocco last night, and they don't really have any of the magical players of the 90s, and they don't have an influential figure that they used to in Samuel Eto'o. So I think if Brazil are to play anything like a full-strength side, it could be rather ugly for Cameroon.
Is that good, Kerr?
It is very good. And Tim?
And yeah, I'm going to get Tim's... Yeah, Tim, you go first, because I want the young Brazilians in the house as well to give us their thoughts. But you go ahead, Tim.
What did you think of
first of all, and Edu, you know, the former Arsenal midfielder, Edu's on Brazil's coaching staff. When he announced those games, he said, we've got 2 games coming up in London. We've got Uruguay at the Emirates Stadium, and we've got Cameroon at Milton Keynes. I was like, well, you can't say that's London. That's an hour on the train. You can't have that. You know, you got to get a train to go and see those. You want to see those concrete cows? You got to get a train to do that. The idea is, in a perfect world, full strength against Uruguay, and they would experiment a little bit more against Cameroon. I still think that's the plan. They've been a bit limited in this squad because the Brazilian Championship is coming right up to the closing stages. They haven't called up any home-based players. There's one. And plus an under-20 goalkeeper who's not going to get a game. There's one home-based player. So the kind of up-and-coming youngsters who normally would get a run against Cameroon, they're not here because they're still based in Brazil. I think also, although they beat Argentina 1-0 last month in Saudi Arabia, and now they've just beaten Uruguay 1-0, I don't think they should be entirely pleased, because I don't think the either performance was particularly convincing. I did a TV show with a coach a couple of weeks back, and he's now decided on Firmino as his centre forward. And I asked him, because Firmino isn't really a centre forward. He likes playing just behind. He likes dropping deep to combine. And I said, right, if you're going to do that, where's your attacking depth going to come from? And he said, well, from Neymar. But again, Neymar likes to orchestrate from deep and from who's playing right side attacking. And against Uruguay, they went with Douglas Costa, who's a winger. I think they're much better playing Richarlison in that position, because Richarlison is that mixture of wide striker and centre forward, who does give you that depth. He does get into the penalty area. And I think both times, both against Argentina and against Uruguay, they were better when Richarlison came on wide right, cutting into the penalty area. So I would like to see him maybe get a start against Cameroon. Maybe Alain, the young midfielder who got he's not that young, he's kind of mid to late 20s already, of Napoli, who got his debut against Uruguay, came on and did well, added some dynamism to the midfield. I'd like to see him get a start as well. So there isn't that much room for experimentation, but I don't think it will be quite the first team lineup that you saw against Uruguay. But I still fear for Cameroon and Clarence Seedorf. I think Brazil might be too strong for them.
Yeah, team. I'm Philip. You can call me Phil from Brazil.
But you're not Big Phil, are you? You're not
no,
Big
I'm
Phil
not.
Scolari.
Yeah, I'm not Big
just
Phil.
Clarify.
I
So you're
just
Philippe.
You can't use that as a song title, by the way. Paul Simon.
So about Brazilian team is to be honest, all of us is not so sure about the team there, because what we've done in World Cup did not convince us. Like we loved Neymar, but we are not sure nowadays because all of the things he has done around France and the Brazilian team. So Brazil needs forward, central forward. I'm not sure if Firmino.
I think Firmino is a good option.
Yeah, it's a good option, but not the mainly. But I think I agree with Tim about Richarlison.
Me too.
Could be him, but there are another players around the world, or maybe in Brazil.
Maybe in Brazil, yeah.
Like Lucas, not the same position. Lucas Paquetá. I don't know if you.
Yeah, we know him. We know.
Okay, all right. Lucas Paquetá, and another one plays there. So about the Brazilian team, Brazil is not convincing us about the quality. So we are a little concerned about it.
How do you say in Brazil, look at the clock, the time? Is it vigia? Vigia? Is that the time? You know, when you're vigia, you don't know what the time is, you know?
I don't know, a vigia.
Yeah, obrigado.
Okay.
First, we'll come back to this in a moment.
All right.
We'll get the latest 5 Live headlines now. Here's Richard Foster.
My thoughts are running all around. Feels like a fire in my body. Yeah, I feel so stupid, but I don't care. If you wanna taste, come and take a sip. Grab you by the waist, bring you close so near. We don't wanna sleep, we're awake and tell. I can tell we're on fire.
Yeah, they're on fire. Up and Go. They're called Up and Go. They are our guests from Brazil who are travelling across Europe. They have music, will travel, and they've literally rocked up over this side of the water to try their hand on playing gigs everywhere. So we brought them in on Up All Night because they like a little bit of football as well. 08085 909.
Have they also played Milton Keynes?
Did you play Milton Keynes when you played here in the UK? Because you've played all your concerts already in Britain. Did you play a place called Milton Keynes where Brazil will be playing Cameroon?
No.
You didn't play. Where did you play? Which city did you play?
We played here in London. We did an open mic night at Ronnie Scott's.
Yeah, that's very
Ronnie
good. Very
Scott's,
famous, very famous.
Yeah, and then we did a gig in Nambucca.
Where?
Nambucca. Yeah.
Where's that?
I think
It's north.
I think so. I think it's northern London. Yeah.
Oh, North London?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know any other cities? Did you do any other cities outside London?
We went to Leicester.
Leicester?
Yeah,
Okay.
Leicester. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mark, I asked them, but they don't even know where Milton Keynes is.
Does anybody?
Well, I wouldn't like to say because I have to go there sometimes. 08085 909 693. Ostensibly, we're talking football in Africa, in South America, and also ahead of England's matchup versus Croatia. We're talking football there as well. Just very quickly, Dom, obviously, the last time these two teams met in the World Cup, one particular player tore the England defence apart with his passing. Is he playing this time around?
You're talking about Rakitic?
No, I was talking about Lucas Modric.
Oh, Modric, yeah. Modric
Rakitic isn't playing, I know.
was a thorn in our side as well. The good news is Rakitic isn't playing. He's going to be out of it. He's picked up an injury, which is great. So there's a little bit of hope for England there. It's obviously not great. Tim laughing there. Obviously not great for Rakitic. This is me being a bit one-eyed here. But if you think back to the World Cup and how there was that brief high watermark, wasn't there, with the free kick, and we went ahead in the semi-final. You just think, really? Can it honestly happen? And I'd been saying in my bravado to people like Tim, funnily enough, this is our year, it's coming home, all this nonsense, and I got carried away with it, and sure enough, it all went horribly wrong. England were played off the park in the World Cup, but here we are in this Nations League thing, which the naysayers, you'll remember this, Dotun as well, was saying maybe this is going to be a bit like the League of Nations and just be a complete disaster. And actually, it's turned out to be a huge success for many people. The weird thing, and this is the crazy thing about this particular game, of course, is that England could either do really well or it could be really bad for them. And also the same thing goes for Croatia as well. It's pretty complex and a contrived format, many people are saying. But if England win, then they go through, which is all great. But equally, they could just come out of this with nothing and Croatia could go through. So it's kind of a bizarre setup. I guess you'd still have to fancy Croatia at the moment, especially when you bear in mind the other night that England, put out a side with 94 caps, and then they brought a man on in the second half who had 120. So it kind of puts it all into perspective. It could go on and on. Some great youngsters coming through for England, which holds out a lot of hope. They're going in the right direction, undeniably, but maybe this game's come a wee bit too soon. I don't know what you think.
No, I'll tell you what I think. You've been a little bit unfair to the League of Nations. No, you are, because there was one great moment at the League of Nations. Do you know what that was?
Go on.
No, you tell me.
Woodrow Wilson played a big key role in it.
That's not bad, not bad. Now, I was thinking June 1936, Geneva, Switzerland. Well, you go on. Have a guess.
I don't know. You've go on. You tantalised me with you've given me a glimpse of ankle there, and you've stopped.
I know. Well, it's just because at that moment, yeah, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, High elect of God.
For Haile Selassie.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
We're going for Abyssinia.
Well, yeah, we're going for Abyssinia, but what in particular did he say that is now the subject of one of the greatest songs that Bob Marley ever wrote?
It wasn't that Westlife one, was it?
It was, actually. Dear.
Go on, Dutton. Go on, educate us.
It's called war. It's until the philosophy that holds one race superior and the other inferior shall finally and permanently be destroyed and abandoned. Until that day, there will be war. Anand in New Delhi is with us. Good morning, Anand.
Good morning, Dutton. How are you, mate?
Very well, thanks very much. You want to talk about Wayne Rooney?
Oh, yes. Boa noite, Tim. Hi, Mark.
Boa noite.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Oi, meninos, como vai?
What? Say that again?
Oi. Tudo bem?
Tudo bem, meu cara?
Tudo bem, e você?
Tudo bem. Tudo bem. Eu e no dele.
Now, there is no need to speak about Dotton's mother like that. It's just not necessary.
I just want to, first I just want to be nice to Don, because it's not League of Nations, it's Nations League. The League of Nations led to Treaty of Versailles.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, it's very true. That's very true. That's another point. I forgot to mention that point because Bob Marley didn't include it in the song. So apologies.
and as Valdano said regarding the Super Classico, River Plate and Boca Junior, that he's a Racing fan and he will be happy if they both lose. So in the same match between England and Croatia, if they both draw, then Spain will go. So,
how about that, Don?
Not one team.
A draw? So is a draw likely?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose
if they tie the match, then the Spanish will go through, and they both lose.
Yes, that is yes, yes. as we say in Yorkshire, yes.
So you're our expert tonight, Anand. You're our expert tonight.
You know, the Yorkshire guys are doing pretty well, man. I mean, even the Prime Minister in Jeffrey Boycott.
Jeffrey.
I mean, he's the only Yorkshire guy.
Are you a Jeffrey fan?
Not Jeffrey Boycott. Oh, I love his commentary. I mean, not his batting fan, but certainly the way he...
I'm not trying to be funny,
but
the
way he dissects.
This is a world football phone-in. I know the ball is round.
Jeffrey's a Manchester United fan, so make of that what you will.
There you go. Well done. Well done for linking up, Dom.
I don't go
the next
close to
news
that
break,
one.
Dom will have to explain Jeffrey Boycott to our Brazilians.
There's enough time.
Yeah, we'll leave it to the next news break. But yeah, what did you want to say about Wayne Rooney, Anand?
Yeah, so I mean, this week the life is all around number 10. So, and it is number 10 about Wayne Rooney, not 38. Otherwise, I won't have any backstop. So this week they have this Wayne Rooney match, which is part, a felicitation match or a giving away a
testimonial.
Ceremonial match. That's more close to a friendly one. So in certain part of the world, we have this culture of retiring a shirt. Napoli has retired Maradona shirt. So a culture in African clubs or in South America where they retire the shirts.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Is there anything like that in Africa, Mark?
There have been one or two that have done it. I think more on the back of the publicity that's come out of major clubs. I think Johan Cruyff, of course, is probably the most famous, the number 14 jersey with Ajax and with the Dutch national team. And it has happened for one or two players in Africa, more on a ceremonial basis than anything else, because I'm sure if you did some proper research, you'll probably find that number has been used since. But a decent send-off in the way that Wayne Rooney received last night has happened before on the continent, but it's very rare.
And in South America, Tim?
Well, no one's wearing number 10 for Argentina at the moment, and they've just beaten Mexico. Ended about half an hour ago. They beat Mexico 2-0, and while Messi's not playing for them, there's no one wearing the number 10 shirt.
That's not the same thing, though, as retiring it, though, is it?
No, I'm against the idea of retiring it anyway, because I always think, like, why take the dream away? You know, a kid growing up watching a Pelé or a Maradona or a Messi, think, I want to do that. Why make it impossible for him to wear that number 10 shirt? So I'm against it. In terms of the ceremonial games, they do happen sometimes. I remember being in the stadium in Sao Paulo a few years back when Romario got one for Brazil. It was a game against Guatemala or something. I think it was Guatemala, and they kind of used it to sell it as a kind of farewell occasion for Romario. Again, a little bit with the Wayne Rooney situation. I'm against it. Either you're good enough to be selected or you're not good enough to be selected. And if you're not good enough to be selected, if your day is gone, then by all means go and take some applause at half time on the field or something. But I can't really want to play in.
How popular was it, Dom, Wayne Rooney coming on for England after his international retirement? How popular or unpopular was it?
It received on the night it went very well, and the players were very accepting of it and said some wonderful things about him before the game. There's just a slight grey area, and you wouldn't know it by listening to Gareth Southgate when he spoke about Rooney before the game. He said he had absolutely no problem with it, and he sang Rooney's praises. However, if you look at what Southgate has done with the side, and I don't know, Mark, if you agree with this, you've seen this from afar either, but he's been very bold with what he's done. And of course, one of the key things he did was bring an end to the Wayne Rooney era. He's brought a lot of youngsters in. He's changed the culture of the team entirely. Yes, you could argue they got lucky at the World Cup with the way the draw thing went, but you still have to make the most of that, and you still have to develop the right culture within the side and bring the youth forward and get everyone working together. He's done all of these things. He's been very, very brave, and bringing Rooney back for a testimonial, I don't think is the sort of thing that Southgate would have had on his list of must-dos. He was possibly lent on, as I say, you wouldn't know it to hear him say he did all the right things, made all the right noises, but I just wonder.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I watched just a couple of months ago the Dutch one that they did for Wesley Sneijder ahead of the friendly against Peru. And, they gave him a good sort of 50 minutes of the game, well past his best, and actually, in a way, breaking the rhythm of a new coach trying to use these kind of matches, which come around fairly infrequently. With this Nations League now, friendly games are very rare, and your opportunity just to get away with a few things, experiment a little bit, becoming fewer and fewer. And so I agree with you. I think Southgate was lent on. I don't like the concept. I agree with Tim 100%. And I've listened this week to the debate raging in England about, and I think there have been some very, very good points made. I think the key thing is to honour players like Wayne Rooney is essential, but bring him out at half time. Let his foundation make some money out of the friendly against the Americans, as they did. They had those sort of they had adverts on the side hoardings saying, text Rooney to a certain number and give to charity. All a wonderful idea, but don't put him on the pitch in a kit, as part of the game. Let him come out, as Tim said, at halftime. I think that's the right way to do it.
We've got Gabriel, Felipe, and Lucas from the group Up and Go here in the studio as well. They're from Brazil, going back to Brazil in December. Whilst you're here, though, we have to ask about the iconic Brazilian football shirts,
Okay.
The yellow and blue and a little bit of green. Yeah. You all have one, I imagine, because everybody in Brazil has one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody in Brazil has one. I don't know if you know the news about the guy that designed it. He died just this week. Do you know this news as well?
Yeah, I've heard in the stadium. I was there, and the last match, Brazil today.
Today.
Because why does that shirt mean so much to Brazilians? Because you have another shirt, a blue shirt, but nobody ever wears that one.
I wear this one.
Well, apart from Gabriel, nobody else ever wears the blue
I've got
one.
a blue shirt. I wear it sometimes.
Yeah, well, apart from Gabriel and Tim,
Gabriel and Tim,
various other
exactly.
1,000 people.
Does anybody else want
Johnson,
to?
You'll be relieved to know I don't wear a blue shirt.
Thank you.
So.
I was hoping you wouldn't declare your interest in that way as well. But why this? What does it mean? What does that yellow shirt mean to Brazilians, Lucas?
I don't know. I think for me, it's kind of Brazil is such a vibrant country, and we have so much. I don't know. It's so festive. I think the yellow shirt passes more the feeling of being Brazilian. I don't know. It's what I think when I have to choose. Do I wear the blue or the yellow one? I think the yellow one because Brazil. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Do they only win a World Cup when they're wearing yellow?
No.
So,
I don't know.
Have they ever won the World Cup, Tim, when they're not wearing...
58 against
Sweden.
Sweden.
They wore blue.
I think it was the only cup we won wearing blue. The blue T-shirt. Yeah.
Blue. I couldn't tell because it was in black and white for me, you see.
But there's story.
Yeah.
Tim, is that the only World Cup that they've won wearing blue?
I think it is, yeah. And they didn't have a chain shirt. Didn't have one. And imagine, had they won in 1950, they'd be still be wearing white today. But they didn't, so they changed. And 1958, it's true, they got to the final, and it's against Sweden. I mean, there aren't that many teams that wear yellow. So, you're up against Sweden in the final, and Sweden are at home and they wear yellow. You've got to find a chain shirt. So the leader of the delegation, who was very religious, he said, well, blue. Let's get a blue one now. Blue's on the flag. Blue is the colour of... and the players were a little bit worried because it was a very, very superstitious team. Really superstitious team. And one of my favourite stories of that World Cup is that they had a psychologist on the team as well. He was very good. It's an early experiment with sports psychology. He recommended that both Pelé and Garrincha be dropped. So thankfully for Cristiano, no one took his advice. But he raged against this decision. No, because
he was the same bloke that said that the Beatles would never make it, wasn't he? He was the same record producer.
that kind of thing. Yeah. After that, he got a job with Decca and turned down the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he was. They're really superstitious, and that they get it organised. So they have to every game on the coach. They have to sit in the same places. And he hates this. He's moaning about it. This is backwards superstition. We don't need this. And then, as a joke, to test him out, on the way to the final, one of the players sat in a different seat, sat in a seat that he usually occupied. And he, the sports psychologist, when he got on the bus and saw one of the players in his seat, she said, no, we can't change it now. We can't change it now. So it came down to it. He was as superstitious as everyone else. And the change to blue, the leader of the delegation, he said, look, it's the colour of my favourite saint. And that got the players on board, and they won in 58 in blue. Played Sweden in the semi-final in 94, again in blue. But I think I think 58 is the only that they won in blue. But had they won in 50, they'd still be wearing white today.
Let me quickly go around the table. Lucas, which team do you support in Brazil?
I support Cruzeiro.
Cruzeiro?
Yeah.
And Felipe, which team do you support?
Vasco da Gama.
I'm Vasco da Gama as well,
Yeah.
I'm Vasco as well because Tim bought me one very cheap shirt. Very, very cheap. Yeah, very cheap. It's got the white with the black
Muito
stripe.
pirata.
Yeah. What was that?
Pirata.
Yeah, it was a pirata one. It was a pirata one. We say fell off the back of a lorry, yeah?
Okay.
And also, Gabriel, which team?
Atlético Mineiro.
Atletico. Which of those three is the wiser supporter, Tim, out of them?
Well, I live in Rio, so I have to say Vasco. But what surprises me is you've got two real rivals there from the same city. Belo Horizonte. You've got an Atletico fan and a Cruzeiro fan, and they're really, really strong rivals. Yeah. Although there's an even more famous Brazilian band than Up and Go. Called Skanky, who they play kind of ska-inspired stuff. An English audience could get into them very easily, I think. They're kind of divided. They're also from that part of the world, and they're divided between Cruzeiro and Atletico fans.
Yeah.
But I'm sure on Derby Day in Belo Horizonte, there's a few sparks flying in the Up and Go rehearsals.
Yeah.
Thankfully not here in the studio today. Jack wants to know, Mark, are any of the African countries going to make a bid for a World Cup in 2030 or 2034?
Yeah, the Moroccans who just missed out on the World Cup that's going to North America, to Canada, Mexico, and the US, are talking about going again. There's also talk of sort of a North African bid, which would include Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt, along with Morocco. Early doors still. I think there have been a couple of talks between the sort of disbanding committee that was unsuccessful with Morocco for 2026, and some of the federation presidents from elsewhere in North Africa. But besides that, there haven't really been any concrete moves yet. So I think the strongest signals have come out of England so far, and of course the South American one with which will want to celebrate a centenary of the World Cup with Uruguay.
Of course, and there was that Morocco-Spain bid as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's been some publicity about that, but I don't think that's more speculation than anything formal. I think if there is to be a bid again with Morocco as the centerpiece, then it's going to be a North African bid bringing in Algeria, Egypt, and Tunisia. And a lot of that will also depend on how things go in Qatar. But I think Morocco will give it another go. But obviously, against the whole sentimental centennial World Cup with Uruguay, plus a strong English bid, probably end up losing again.
Andy wants to know what's happening to Bobby Williamson and Dylan Kerr in Africa.
Bobby Williamson, I've lost touch with. He was coaching in Kenya. Dylan Kerr just quit his job as coach of Kenya's most famous club, Gor Mahia, or best supported club, Gor Mahia. I wonder if he's going to take up a job in South Africa, because there have been 2 coaching vacancies here over the last couple of days, and he used to play in the league here. So I have a suspicion that if you put one and one together, there might be something there.
And Matthew in Manchester says to his shock, he just came home from the pub, switched on the telly, and he saw a pundit named Jim Vickery on the telly. What a shock. So you listen to the World Football phone-in on 5 Live on Up All Night. If you'd like to join us, we've got another hour of the phone-in to go. Sorry? Hello, Tim? Were you trying to interrupt me again?
No, I wasn't. No, it was purely accidental. Happens at times. Live radio.
I know. Don't worry. Concentrate on the game, mate. On the game. It's a football match, you know. You've got another 55 minutes to go, mate. You know, you can't be talking and thinking and being distracted. Concentrate, mate. Concentrate. Then you won't be talking over the newsreader. Boom, boom. Anyway, let's leave that aside for 1 second. 0808. I had to get that in, Dom. I had to, didn't I? You thought I'd forgotten. 08085 909 693 is the number. We genuinely are talking about football in Africa and South America and ahead of the England-Croatia match as well. And of course, we're talking about players playing in those regions who are playing in our leagues as well. Representing any questions and comments you might have on football in Africa is the Oracle of African football, the Springboca junior, Mark Gleeson, who's in Cape Town. We've got the Legendinho, Tim Vickery. Taking any questions you've got on South American football, and indeed players from over there playing in our leagues as well. And we've got Dom Busby. Dominic, are you doing this for Radio 4 or Radio 5 this time?
I just whoever tells me, I just do as I'm told.
So we're Radio 5 Live, so you're Dom to us.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, on Radio 4, I go with Dominic because I feel that I ought to be Dominic.
Yeah, it's a much more kind of fully religious context name, isn't it?
Tim's
Dominic.
Laughing, but he understands how. And now the sport with Dominic Busby.
And when he's on Radio 4, is he ever Timothy Vickery?
Timothy Vickery. Wouldn't that be great? Why not?
In fact, no, it's terrible. And it's also not my name. Talking of this radio things, you know, the Super Classical, the Boca Juniors versus River Plate final of the Libertadores.
Yeah, we're coming on to
There's
that.
one radio station in Argentina. You know, this is just, he's got the whole nation on the verge of a nervous breakdown in Argentina. And there's one radio station in Argentina, Radio Colonia, who have made a point of broadcasting the game in tones like this. The kind of tones that Dominic Busby was, and not Dom Busby, with Dominic, soothing music playing in the background, and lots of spots during the transmission. Lots of spots during the transmission on how to get in touch with your cardiologist. I think that for me is the best story that's come out of this Super Classical.
For Radio 4, you're absolutely right. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But before we go any further, I must introduce once again our guest all the way from Brazil. They're a music group. They're called Up and Go, and they literally up and went and came over here, Europe that is, generally, to play gigs. Didn't know where they were going to play, had no contacts here in Europe. This is a joke about it. They literally came over here blindfolded, rocked up and decided to live in a couple of caravans whilst they try to go around the landscape and play some music. And this is what they sound like.
Yeah. Something's going on, buzzing in my brain. Need to have some fun, make the best of it. Turn it up and come, celebrate with me. You just gotta let it go, go. Take my hand and feel the flow. Celebrate, it's party time. Celebrate, it feels so fine. Celebrate, 'cause we're all together now.
I thought you were going to sing your Atletico Mineiro song.
Oh, no, man. That's not my thing. No,
you can't sing Atletico Mineiro or Cruzeiro songs.
Yeah, Cruzeiros, yeah.
Cruzeiro.
Okay.
Okay, so Cruzeiro, how would you sing? What would you sing on the pitch? Something that's, tasteful, decent, because there will be people who understand Portuguese. So I don't want any of that rivalry stuff. Something nice.
Yeah, I think the anthem. Existe grande clube na cidade que mora.
Come on, Gabriel, sing, Gabriel.
No way.
Cheio de vaidade, mas na realidade é grande campeão. Nos gramados de Minas Gerais temos páginas heróicas imortais. Cruzeiro querido, tão combatido, jamais vencido.
As this is radio, I have to explain that Lucas was singing that to Gabriel. Gabriel was shifting around on his seat like he was sitting on hot coals there. He wasn't very happy. But you're going to get your chance.
For 1 minute,
Yeah,
was deaf.
You were deaf for a minute, but now you found your hearing again. What would your reply be? What's the anthem for Cruzeiro there?
Nós somos do Clube Atlético Mineiro, jogamos com muita raça e amor, vibramos com alegria nas vitórias. Clube Atlético Mineiro, galo forte vingador.
And we've got one more from Vasco da Gama. What would you sing?
Okay, I'm a kind of referee here.
Oh, yes,
because-
between the
okay,
two.
yeah.
Okay, a referee. Who won that battle of the songs, of the football anthems?
Be fair, be fair.
I-
Yeah, be fair, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
He can sing. I can't sing, but
how much can you pay me?
Oh, man.
Tim, who won the
Check my
battle?
wallet, yeah.
Who won the battle for you, Tim?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a draw without
It's a
any
draw.
away
It's a
goals
draw.
rules.
It's
It's a draw. Everyone goes home.
Okay,
happy.
that's nice.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being very sporting about
Yeah.
your
So-
contribution there.
Can I ask a question? Do all clubs in Brazil, in fact, throughout South America, do they have sort of a club song or club anthem as you've just sung? It's a bit like your school song, which is certainly not part of European football.
Yeah.
Really strange.
Yeah.
Every team
really
from that
strange.
has an anthem.
yeah.
Because, like Mark says, we only have our school songs, and mine was old boys and new boys, we're proud to be stationers. Bolt, Colt, and Hornsey have taught us our trade. Life is our business, and we are probationers. Into the world we must march unafraid, till friendship shall bring us all
him.
home.
Take him out.
Lucas, we have to fire you.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't get any applause for that.
No, I thought it was excellent.
Mic drop. It's a mic drop moment here. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay. You asked for it, Mark. You asked for it, and you know me. You put the ball in the penalty spot, and I'll bang it in.
It was a wonderful League One effort, sir. Wonderful.
This from Nick in Manchester. Tim, Man United were linked during the summer with a 17-year-old Santos player called Yuri Alberto. How is he progressing this season, and do you see him as a future Manchester United player or not?
Right. Well, I just had a cut out on the line. Was it Rodrigo? Was that
No,
I didn't hear the
Yuri
name of the player. Was it
Alberto.
Rodrigo.
He's a 17-year-old called Yuri
Oh, right, no,
Alberto.
Yeah, I mean, more smoke than fire so far. I was in the stadium to watch Santos yesterday, and he didn't get on there. He was on the bench, but he didn't get on. The one to watch from Santos, who's 17, just coming up 18, is Rodrigo, who unfortunately Man United, you can't have him because he's already going to Real Madrid when he turns 18. He looks a wonderful, wonderful talent. It's not it's not a case of someone who's matured physically premature. So he's a little bit weak at the moment. He's knocked off the ball quite easily, but you can see him thinking. And he's another one of those who kind of wide strikers. He can play either flank, and there's such a maturity about his game. And if he was a bit more mature physically, he may already be in the Brazil squad. That's how good he is. He's a wonderful, wonderful player, Rodrigo of Santos. So if you want a 17, 18-year-old from that club, that's the one to follow.
Okay. 08085909693 is our number. We've got James with us in South Cole. Hello, James. How are you?
I'm very well. Should I call you Dotun or Mr. Adebayo?
Oh,
Which one would you prefer?
They usually call me Adebayisco or Polka Dotun.
That's very good because my actual middle name is also Aiko in my Ugandan native.
Oh.
I was actually calling you to make a contribution. Just to correct you, I'm calling you from Southall. In
South
Middlesex.
Hall. I was wondering. They said South Cole here, and I thought it was some part of the world that shall forever be England. But it's South Hall. Okay, South Hall.
It's Southall in Middlesex.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I was actually... Can I make a criticism? I actually admire your show, and because I'm someone who suffers from tinnitus and insomnia,
Yes.
so I have the radio on as my backdrop through the night. And I always listen to you make very intelligent comments. And you were talking about retiring of shirts, and you asked whether shirts are retired in Africa, and you forgot one legendary African player who just retired his shirt.
Hey, listen, I never said a word. Speak to the Springboca Junior. Mark Gleeson, he's the one that forgot, not me. Do you want to speak to Mark?
I know Mark as well because I listen to him very, very much when he's talking about the Americas and so on, and Nick as well. So I was surprised nobody came up with the name that is very prominent in world football, a Ballon d'Or football winner who retired his shirt only a few months back, and nobody mentioned it from Africa.
Mark,
Who's that?
Mark.
Who's that?
Mark. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Do you want to tell him, James? Do you want to tell Mark?
Yes, of course, absolutely. George Weah just retired the number 14 shirt for Liberia, and he played at what age? The very old, very young, ripe age of something like 60 for about 60 minutes with the young team as well. So that's something that we have to celebrate. And there was another comment that was made, that why would you take away the dreams of the young people by retiring a shirt?
That was Tim. That was Tim that made that.
That was Tim, yes. I have to contend with that because it's not about taking away a dream. It's about honoring the shirt which is now owned by that person. That if you take that shirt, the weight that you take with the shirt may ruin your career. So you can develop yourself and build another shirt up, like Raul did. He retired a shirt. I think Maradona retired the Napoli number 10. George Weah retired the number 14 in Liberia. And this is about honoring to say you own this shirt. Nobody else is going to probably ever match your feet.
Okay, so, just for those who are wondering, just to chip in, age-wise, he did play recently. He 52. I just looked it up. I cheated.
What, George Weah was 52?
Yes.
So there's hope for me.
Hang on. But he played because he's the president of the country. Yeah. It was a friendly. It was a friendly game organised around his inauguration. I mean, what do? You get George Weah to sit in the stand and watch for 90 minutes, or you ask him to put on some kit and come down and play for 50 minutes. It's listen, I'm going to retire my own shirt one day as well, and but I don't think you can include me in the the pantheon of African footballing greats.
And you're not president. You're not a president yet, so there's a big difference here.
Yeah, no, I mean that George Weah thing was, people must take that with a rather massive dollop of salt.
James,
it was certainly no footballing achievement to play at the age of 52 in the national team.
James,
yes. This is what I would contest. George Weah didn't play because he was the president. They actually wanted to honor him to come and play for a few minutes, but he was doing so well still, they left him on. The manager was going to take him off after he walked onto the pitch, play for 10 minutes, and wave off. But he did really well.
James,
if you don't believe me, watch the YouTube.
James, you're a good African boy like me. Would you take the president off? Would you substitute the president?
Of course, he wouldn't have minded.
I don't think so, James. Come on.
No.
James, I'm from Nigeria. You take the president off, you're going straight to jail. You're not passing go.
I come from Uganda. I have an even worse president than you in terms of probably dictatorial supremacy. He would probably have me matched immediately and sacked, but I will still take him off because if he came on and we are honoring him, you have to respect your role as the president. And George Weah did when he was taken off. He was actually really happy about the whole thing. But just to go back to the point I was making, this is all about, and I wanted us to see whether Mark was going to answer this, that taking away the dreams of young people who want to wear. If I was going to play, and I played football as a striker right through school, through Middlesex, English schools, and my number was number 9. If I made that number my own, if some kid wants to come up, the last thing they should be wanting is to wear my number. They can say, I love the way this guy played, like I love the way Messi played, but I wouldn't want to wear Messi's number because he owns it. You have to respect that and let him own the number. I don't know whether you agree with that or not.
Well, let's take Tim on that one because you're the one that brought up that side of it, Tim. How do you answer, James?
We're going to have to disagree here. I'm not as hierarchical as this. I don't think anyone owns the shirt. I think you are a custodian of the shirt. and when your time's gone, you pass it on to someone else. That's the way that I see it. So I think that our views are inevitably going to disagree on that.
And did you retire your number 9, James, or is somebody else wearing it now?
No. I got injured before. I had a trial at Chelsea and Arsenal. I never got back after 16. But just to go back, I agree with you that you're a custodian of the shirt. But there comes a level of achievement that is so high. If you look at the way Messi is playing at the moment, the achievement he's having at Barcelona. If Messi retired, if any 16-year-old goes to Barcelona and says, I want to wear Messi's number, I think they will be slightly daunted by the task they have to achieve to match up to the number, the weight of the number alone on your back.
But if you do it too many times, then that devalues the honour of it anyway, doesn't it? If you think if you go over, let's say, a 40-year period, and how many times has it happened? Let's say every 6 or 7 years, a great player comes along, globally I'm talking about, for a club somewhere, and they retire that shirt. After a while, it's just, another shirt's been retired. It's not special anymore.
Let's be honest. The people we are mentioning here don't come around 6 or 7 years. And Messi will never come again, probably in our lifetime. That someone who will... The frequency at which the guy achieves goals is ridiculous. I don't even know to measure him with.
Just to be awkward here, you say that, but he's playing at exactly the same time, controversially, I'm sure you'll agree, but as Ronaldo. And they're constantly being,
Ronaldo. Ronaldo. But these players I'm talking about are a different, they're completely different strata to any other player on the pitch. And you have to, if you watch the game today that Brazil were playing, and this is something I completely do not like about what's his name, the number 10. I forget his name. Neymar. Neymar's attitude is really bad for Brazil's game because every time he wants to be given the ball, and if he doesn't get the ball, he's flipping about, chucking his toys out the pram. It's ridiculous.
It's a strop, isn't it? It's what we call a strop. But he is their star player. And indeed, I know that Felipe here in the studio as well. You had a question. Was it about Neymar? And thank you for the call, by the way, James. I still don't know how you're going to take your president off the field or even get him to take his hat off when he goes onto the field as well. But you've got a question. You've got a question for...
Yeah,
was it for Dom?
Dom.
Oh, it's for Dom. Apologies, yeah.
Yeah, Dom, I've never had this kind of opportunity to ask to English person. So here we go. It's about, I'm a Vasco da Gama fan, so my question is about Coutinho in Liverpool.
Who used to be a Vasco da Gama player.
Yeah. So how was the English feeling when he left?
Well, they didn't want him to go. Anybody who was a fan of football could see what a fabulous player Coutinho is, and they knew what an asset they had there, and all the pundits would talk about what he did on the ball, off the ball, how he brought other players through, how he thought about the game, his skill levels, etc., etc. And so, just a massive loss.
Okay, and lots of questions. Oh, by the way, Up and Go, the boys here in the studio from the band Up and Go, they've got some fan mail already. Hooray! Jerry in Dublin says, Up and Go coming to the UK with no gigs planned and 15 of them in caravans. OMG, it's an invasion. Just as well they didn't try for the USA. God only knows what the US president would send against them. And also, lucky
Fake
that...
news,
Yes,
fake news.
Well, it may be. But there's another aspect to this.
You're not a good person.
We could be here all night doing this impersonation. But we haven't got the time. So also, lucky that Up and Go got into the UK before March the 29th, Who knows who'll get in after that date? The powers that be might want to keep me out. Only joking, of course, but Jerry is in Dublin. I don't know if you are joking in that respect. Do you know what happens in the UK on March the 29th, guys? March the 29th of next year? No idea. March the 29th of next year. Well, come here on March the 30th of next year and see if you get in. And, oh, by the way, as we always get, we get one of these. And fair enough, I agree. Mike, the deed poll officer, says, please, Dotun, I'm trying to work. Please stop singing. I agree. I apologise. I just, when you start talking about my old school shirt, it just gets me going again.
Dotun, can I, unless you've got a caller standing by, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, so the other week when I was driving in, because I was on an early shift, I was hearing you and Tim, and it could have been Mark, I can't remember, talking about the best players. I think it was a great question, actually. Someone said, who are the best players in the world that are not forwards? Do you remember this conversation?
Yeah.
And we went through various people, and the old topic of one of my favourites, defensive midfielders, came up. And then this got me thinking, Tim and Mark, maybe you can answer this, but way back when dear old Bobby Robson in 1990 brought in his sweeper system, and had this guy sweeping up at the back and then pushing forward again. I wonder if that was, could those guys who originally played in what Bobby considered this sweeper system, is that what he was really thinking of as a sort of, because it wasn't just a last line of defence. Presumably you want a player in that position who can pass a ball effectively, who can maybe make a run as well. Was that another term for a defensive midfielder, or would that be further up, do you think?
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, the sweeper is behind the defensive line, so he's got all of the playing in front of him. And he can also, because he's got all the play in front of him, he can see it. So he can also see the holes. So he should be thinking, as well as defending, he's thinking, if I get the ball now, what am I going to do with it? How can I be constructive? And that's the way that Bobby Moore built his career. And Bobby Moore was essentially a sweeper for England as well. I mean, he often didn't man mark. They had a defensive midfielder who man marked, and the other centre back would man mark, and he would be free. So he's there first of all to plug gaps, but also to set the moves in motion, either with passes out of defence or bringing the ball out of defence. And when Germany won Euro 96 in England, Matthias Sammer played that role to absolute perfection. You didn't really know where he was coming from. So it was hard for the opponents to plan for him, because he'd come at you from all different angles.
Is it outdated,
he'd watch
though,
the play from behind?
Tim, would it not happen
today?
today?
I don't think it is.
All right.
I don't think it is. I don't think a lot of ideas in football are circular.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a very good point that Mark makes.
Well, that's part of it.
Well, yeah, the goalkeeper is now the sweeper. Is that the point you're making, Mark?
Yeah.
And make this other point then, if you know, one word is all I got out of him. Hopefully I'll get two out of you on this one. Yeah. Sam says, for you, Mark, can you please enlighten your listeners on the famous Nigerian footballer called Thunder Balogun, Nigeria's own Pele, if not better? He was even good enough to play in the English league in the 50s. Do you know about him?
No, I don't. I know that there were just a handful of Nigerians who played not too many league matches before the sort of wave of Africans started arriving in the 80s and the 90s. But obviously that was the days before Nigeria had a national team, before there was any sort of formal competition around the continent. And I'm sure his reputation would have been built sort of on word of mouth, and then people in Nigeria actually being able to see him, because obviously in those days there would have been very little coverage. But I'd be fascinated to find out a bit more about him.
Yeah. By the way, Gerard says, well done you for being able to pronounce Van Dijk last time out.
Thank you.
So just remind us how should we pronounce. Van Dijk. Yeah, he says, I feel I can now forgive Mark again for butchering of De Bruyne.
Can I ask a question here? How would Dick Van Dyke pronounce?
He'd pronounce like a good old Cockney, wouldn't he? He'd say Dick Van Dyke.
The same way.
Dick Van Dyke from the East
Van
End.
Gogh would.
Yeah, exactly. Or Van Gogh. Yeah, but apparently you butchered De Bruyne a while back.
Yeah, I was setting everybody correct. It's
How do you pronounce it?
It's De Bruyne.
Yeah, no, not far. He'd say it's De Bruyne.
No, he's talking nonsense.
He's talking nonsense, right? He's just complimented you, but he's talking nonsense.
He's talking out of his Van Dyke.
We'll come back to his question in a moment or two. 08085 909 693. So ostensibly we're talking African, South American, and also ahead of England and Croatia. Any questions you've got about that, give us a call. I wonder if they're going to be able to sing a Brazilian song this time. I wonder, Lucas, something Brazilian.
I'm thinking
about the girl from Ipanema. We've already done that one, haven't we?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know. Tim, I'm only joking, mate. You know me. That's the only one I know. I can't think of any other ones.
Yeah. I don't know what songs do you know around here from Brazil.
Oh, do you know any song by Astrid Gilberto? Astrid Gilberto Gil. Who's the other famous one?
Why are you doing that in a French accent, Dotun?
Fine. By the way, what name in Portuguese do they call
De Bruyne.
De Bruyne.
Yeah, De Bruyne.
How about that, Tim? De Bruyne.
Yeah, I heard the Brazil coach talk about less about him and more about Hazard as that son of a bitch.
Apologies, you can't say that.
Took him out of the World Cup.
You cannot say that, mate. You cannot say that, even at this time of the morning. I apologise.
Tim, here's a question to get you off the hook.
Me at all.
How does Eden Hazard compare to Mickey Hazard?
Well, Mickey Hazard was a terrific player, but Eden Hazard is much better.
I saw Mickey Hazard at the end of his career at Swindon with. Incidentally, in the news this week, I didn't mean to mention him in the same breath, but so nice to hear that Glenn Hoddle is recovering well. But Glenn was player manager at Swindon. I commentated on that year, and Mickey Hazard was playing alongside Glenn, and they still made a very useful. Well, of course, they got back into what was then the Premiership. You may remember, but yeah, I mean,
and Mickey went back to Tottenham after that, and was great there for a season. Was a really imaginative player. But Hazard is so great physically, and what scares people here about Hazard is he's got all the ability of a South American, and you know when he fancies it, he's a fantastic player, and he scared the life out of Brazil in that game. And the fullback was up against him, Fagner, was saying, what do I do about him? And I think if they could have that game again, they would have roughed him up a little bit.
Lots of questions here. This one's an interesting one, actually. I was saying earlier on that this was the listener that was praising the Springboca Junior for his pronunciation, certainly of Van Dijk. And I was going to say that in a French accent, but I thought, no, that would be going a bit too far. Yeah, so the question from him was simply this. A recent scientific study from a university here in Canada, this is Gerard, measured blood biomarkers in test subjects heading a football 40 times in 20 minutes and concluded that there were links between the cell damage to that of concussions. I'd like to know the panelists' thoughts on the future of heading in the game and whether they believe in the future heading will be banned or that some sort of headgear will become mandatory. Do you want to go with that first, Mark?
Well, you wonder in a growing sort of health and safety environment that we live in, where the football itself might be banned, and all sorts of physical contact. Who knows what the future would bring? I think football without heading, with headgear, etc., would just be completely unacceptable. But that might be, someone plays this back in 50 years. That might be a sort of a dinosaur view on the game. I think I do worry a little bit about how much the future generations are going to be allowed to do in this growing culture of health and safety, or whether that's just a passing phase, and we'll all go back to some great old barbarian battles in the future.
Got an email here from one of the very early Brazilian shirt name recipients, Vinyl Messi. You might remember him, Tim. Samuel. He came around my house once, actually. Vinyl Messi. He says, long time no talk. I tried to call in last week, but didn't get through. Anyway, just in case I fall asleep, I thought I'd email. Anyway, question is about tactical innovation and managers. As a lifelong Chelsea fan, I remember this. As a lifelong Chelsea fan, our current and previous coach have both been credited with innovating tactically and bringing something new to the Premier League. Both managers happen to be Italian. It made me wonder if the reason that we don't have British managers managing top clubs around the world because we do not produce tactical innovators, and if so, why is this? The Italians, I imagine, demand results, so not sure this is the factor, though both came up from the lower leagues. I wonder how this relates to managers from South America and Africa too. Parts of South America seem to generate tactical innovators like Bielsa, who have a big influence. I could go on, but I'll leave it there and look forward to everyone's thoughts. Tim, first of all, then, tactical innovators in management. Is that something that South American managers are blessed with, or that's imposed upon them, or what?
Not these days. I mean, there has been huge tactical innovation here in the past. When Brazil launched the back four, that was their thing. They're standing on the shoulders of giants who came before them, and there's a Central European influence in that in Hungarian coaches who came over to this part of the world. But the back four was theirs. In more recent years, I think it's very, very hard for coaches here, really hard, because there's no continuity. And if they lose 3 games in a row, they're sacked. And there's very little time for them to work on the training ground because the games come thick and fast. And so you see this very clearly in Brazilian football at the moment, in domestic Brazilian football, there's such a scarcity of new ideas. Sometimes you see this coming more out of Argentina, perhaps for 2 reasons. On one, it's a really debating society. They love to debate tactics more than they do in Brazil, I think, and also because the calendar of the Argentine game isn't as full, so there is more time to train. And a clear example of this is the first leg of that Libertadores final when River Plate came out on Boca Stadium with 2 tactical surprises that Boca really weren't expecting and took the game to them. Whereas the Brazilian sides who've gone there in the knockout stage, including the Cruzeiro of one of our friends there, they didn't want to cross the halfway line. It was all 11 players hanging off your own crossbar, and let's get a counter attack going if we can. So at the moment there isn't a lot of tactical innovation happening, and most of the tactical innovation takes place in Western Europe because you've got that network. You've got all those countries close together and you got them talking to each other. The problem here, I think, which Vinyl Messi has cited in his email, is the lack of English coaches in that. Where are the English coaches going? A lot of them go out to Asia and so on, and in the past to Africa, although Gleeson, I think, is very happy about them being squeezed out of Africa, simply because they don't seem to have a great deal to offer. Where are the new generation of innovative English coaches coming up with new tactical solutions? I'd love to see that.
How about in Africa, Mark?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, African football really follows the trend set by the world, and as we've discussed previously, the world's your oyster these days, and there's so much access here to the top quality stuff. Be it watching it on television or being able to go and have a look at it, that there's a whole generation of exciting young African coaches, but kind of taking a leaf out of the likes of Bielsa and the Dutch way of playing, etc., etc. In other words, modifying perhaps for local conditions ideas that are germinated elsewhere. I think we still got to get to the stage where something uniquely African is developed. Although, the circumstances and some of the technical qualities of African players is fairly unique, I feel, to the continent. It hasn't really resonated worldwide. But I think there will come a day where there'll be something uniquely African brought to the game on a tactical level, taken from the African circumstance.
Dotun,
yeah.
Can I say something on the heading thing?
Yeah, go.
Just to say, one thing that I've noticed in my lifetime about the heading thing is it used to be traditional, didn't it? There'd be the keeper would smash the ball upfield, and somewhere around the halfway line, 2 or 3 players would leap into the air and compete. So they actually leap heading towards the ball and have full impact on those balls. Now, you don't see as much. 2 things. First of all, you don't see as much of that anymore. And secondly, I wonder if it is down to different thinking on the game. If you look at Dennis Bergkamp's book, reveals that after training, he would get the second team keeper to just on an empty pitch. The others would watch this and be amazed at Arsenal when he first turned up. Get the second team keeper to belt balls at him. He would stand on the halfway line and he would just practice trapping that ball. And he would practice and practice and practice. And they were amazed at his skills and the time and the dedication he took to do that. Now, that's just visionary, but, you know, to be able to do that just takes out, of course, this massive trauma of meeting a ball head on that's come down from maybe 50, 60 feet that you've leapt up to meet anyway. And in the modern game, maybe you don't see it quite as much. I don't know what everyone else thinks. Maybe I'm seeing that wrong. I don't know. But
the balls are less heavy than they used to be. You know, the balls that the old generation in the 50s and 60s, they used to, you know, those leather balls, in wet conditions, they used to gain massively in weight during the game. So obviously that's more difficult. That takes more of a toll on the head. What worries me, I think, more than the ball doing damage, is clash of heads and elbows against heads. And I am intrigued to see where we go with this, especially with the rise in importance in football of the United States. You know, because there it's got a big middle class constituency, very health and safety conscious, but also with access to power. So you can imagine them pushing. You can imagine a push from the United States for protective headgear or the end of heading. And a bit like Mark, I wonder where we'll be in 50 years' time.
Listen, at this time of the morning, we shouldn't be joking around, but John says the Croatian game, with regards to the Croatia game, will the Croatian anthem be performed by Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mikantic? Marwan in Alexandria, we'll come to you in just a second. Just one more from Paul.
I think that's very funny. I get that. That's very funny.
I don't think it's the right place for jokes like that at the moment, but, you know, fair enough. This is from Paul in Wolverhampton. You're going to have to do the last bit for me in your traditional black country accent, Tim, because I can't do it. Okay, the last bit is Boston Air Kid. Can you do that?
Well, I can tell you that the Mexican Raul Jimenez, who plays for Wolves, in 2 minutes, the first 2 minutes of the Argentina-Mexico game, he should have scored twice. He put one against the bar and was straight on through against the keeper and had it saved. So we very nearly had a Wolverhampton goal in Argentina tonight for Mexico.
Yeah. That's not bad, but it's not quite Boston Air Kid. It's good. 4.5 out of 10 for that. This is just a note for the group Up and Go! This is from Paul in Wolverhampton, who says, hi all, just a note to say the group you have with you, Up and Go, should have come and played in Wolverhampton, preferably at Molineux. On match day at half-time as our manager, backroom staff and half our players speak Portuguese. I think that would have been Boston, our kid. Did you understand the word I said? Did any of you understand the word I said?
Not really, no.
Okay. Yeah. Tim, can you translate it in the standard Portuguese? I mean, not the Portugal Portuguese, because they're off to Portugal later on, aren't you? Very soon.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to understand a word that's said, even though they speak Portuguese there.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there's some more, as we talked before, there's some words they use we use in a different way, so maybe we have some trouble with that. But
why can't Brazilians speak real Portuguese?
That's a very good question. Actually, yeah.
Because theirs is the real one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yours is a corruption of the real Portuguese.
Improved. It's an improved version.
That's kind of about right. Yeah, kind of.
I'm just being fair. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. We've got Marwan with us in Egypt. Hello, Marwan.
Hello, Dotun. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks very much. Do you know the question that Felipe asked earlier? Do you want to ask that question again about Coutinho? Because Marwan in Egypt is a Liverpool fan in Egypt, and he might be able to answer that question. The one you asked about Coutinho?
What's the name of him?
He's Marwan.
Marwan. So I was talking about when Coutinho left Liverpool. How was your feeling about it?
So I had mixed feeling. So first of all, Barcelona didn't need him. They needed one to replace Iniesta, but he is not an Iniesta replacement. He's a wide playmaker, and they didn't need him. So we needed him for just 6 months, and then he'd go off to Barcelona. We give him a testimonial, and okay, anything. But he just left it just 6 months away from just starting.
Are you still crying about it?
No, because we did play well, even better than when he did left, because he did occupy a place in the midfield for the midfield three, and he didn't contribute defensively. Now, if Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain came in, he did better, and it was a bit of a balance act. And I think when he sold him, we got Van Dijk, which even bounced more of.
Sorry, Van what? Hold on, Mark.
No, he was right. He was right.
He said Van Dijk.
He said Dijk. He said Dijk.
Yeah, he said Van Dijk. Could you just give him the right pronunciation?
Dijk.
Can you get that right in future, Marwan? You are a Scouser.
There's one friend who say Dijk, Van Dijk, and I got mad at him. He's not Van Dijk, he's Van Dijk. I don't know, maybe don't say the right Van Dijk, but it's not Van Dijk. Yeah.
What's the best football anthem in England, Marwan?
Is this a question?
It is, yeah.
You'll never walk alone. Yeah.
How does it go?
It is.
How does it go?
What?
How does it go? I've never heard it.
Oh, okay. When you walk through the storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of the lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, may your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You will never walk alone. Sorry for my voice.
For me, it was genuinely quite emotional because I didn't know if you could sing it. I didn't know, you're a long way away from Anfield in Egypt, and I think you put some emotion into that, which I genuinely appreciate, and I apologise for, bullying you into doing it. I apologise.
No. It's not bullying. I love singing it.
Yeah, it was a little bit, and I apologise. You did it really well. You did it really well with a lot of emotion as well. Oh, did you have a question, or should we just carry on rambling nonsense?
Yeah. No, I had a question.
I like rambling nonsense.
No, I had a question. So, a question for Mr. Mark. So, I've seen the African Champions League final between the Esperanza and El Ahly. Yeah, it was the first game was a bit of a disaster. There's no football; it's actually refereeing nonsense. And the second, the first goal of Esperanza made the game look bad, but for an Ahly fan, it wasn't. So I just want to say, because I had an argument with my friend, what is the place, where can we stand of African football, club football quality between Asia, Europe? I don't think it's Europe, it's far away, but Asia, North Africa, and North America and South America. Is Africa in a level with South America, if I can say, better than Asia, better than North America? Or is African club football is not that great and it's not improving?
That's a good question. Mark?
Well, there's an annual test of that, really, in a small way, when they have the Club World Championship, Club World Cup, and the Africans have done very poorly. I think overall, one victory over a South American side, one place in the final. So I think included in that is a defeat somewhere along the line at the hands of Auckland City, the mighty Auckland City from New Zealand. And certainly plenty of defeats at the hands of the Asians, who in the 70s and 80s, when there was an annual match between the champion of Africa and Asia, used to be dominated by the Africans. But it is a brief tournament. I don't know if it's a measure. It's the only current measure we have. I think the state of the African club game is healthy. I think the Champions League is an exciting competition. It's certainly full of drama, as Marwan has pointed out there, that this Champions League final that we've just had over the last 2 weeks was, from a neutral perspective, certainly well worth watching. Not so much at times for the football, but for all the drama and the circus that goes around it. And that's been a constant with, particularly with North African sides. They certainly know how to put a good show together. Maybe not so much on the field, but off the field, and it does make for a rather exciting contest. But it's difficult to measure. I think obviously it's African club football is a way off Europe and South America, but I think it should dominate Asia. It should dominate the CONCACAF region, and it's a work in progress. The continental club competitions are improving all the time, and some of the leagues are very strong. Just every now and then we do get some rather bizarre games, as we saw in the first leg of this year's Champions League final.
Yeah, Marwan, thanks a lot for that question. Tim, very quickly, do you want to update us on the Copa Libertadores before we leave? Tim?
I think he's left.
He's already left. Elvis has left the building. Tim, was it something I said?
He's left.
Okay, he's left. Okay, well. Davis, also Richie in Herefordshire says, I believe there is definitely a link between heading and dementia, having played amateur and semi-professional football up till I was 40 years old. Having spoken to other players, it seems the centre-halves and centre-forwards are more suspects, as in Alan Shearer did a programme on it about John Charles, Billy Tucker, Hereford United, but it's still not been proven, he says. It's time to say thank you very much to our guest, Up and Go from Brazil. Where can people see you perform? You're not going to be performing here in the UK again, but where are you off to now?
Yeah, we're going to Portugal. We're going to Oliveira de Azeméis at the 23rd of November. We're going to play at Vadia Brew Pub, and then we're going to Germany, and we're going to travel around Europe. And you can find us on Spotify. Just look us Up and Go, UPNGO, and you can find us on Deezer, all platforms. We just released an album, and it's awesome. You should check it out. Check us out. And
so it's Up and Go, UPNGO.
Yeah, UPNGO, Up and Go.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, actually, we're going to record with Tom. And he manages Bonnie Tyler here, and he's married to Rachel from Bliss. I don't know if...
Yeah, I do know them. Okay,
yeah,
wow.
Hey, recording with him. So
hey, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate
so much.
it. Thanks. Hey, Dom, thanks very much, mate.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate that. Mark, thanks very much. And if anybody sees that other bloke, tell him thanks a lot. Cheers, mate. Could have done with you. Yeah. Cheers. Tim Vickery Jim.